Good morning. Thank you for choosing my session and queuing if necessary. It's good to see a full house. So we're focusing on what I hope is of interest to everyone, how you can fuel growth in digital marketing when there's so much competition. And what we'll be looking at is some joint research that we completed at Smart Insights with the Technology for Marketing and Advertising event, where we did some research where we asked marketers in the UK what was working for them. So I'm not going to bombard you with too many stats and charts because I like to be give some practical advice. But if you do want to drill down into any of the detail, we do have a report available on Smart Insights /TFM&A 2014. So that's a free download if you want to follow up. I think the redirects are in place. So yeah, I was pleased to see the theme for this year was growth, because I've really been involved in helping companies grow their business through digital marketing and how you integrate that with other channels for 15 years now. We're just coming up to 15 years when my first book on internet marketing came out, and now of course we talk about integrated digital marketing. So I'm going to be summarizing the Managing Digital 2014 report and hopefully fueling your success. Does anyone recognize this? Anyone got any tickets booked for this? This is the Virgin Galactic, which is launching this year. There's probably some lessons for digital marketing within the way that brand has been built and also how they manage the risks. So I can't promise to propel you at that speed, but I'm going to cover 6 different areas to help you review your current use of digital marketing. So we did the research in the autumn actually, but I thought to make it a bit more interactive, we'd do a little bit of research here. What I always like to think about at the turn of the year is which trends are going to be important in the year ahead. Everyone's always asking me to look in the crystal ball. And we ask this on Smart Insights every turn of the year, and we find there's the usual suspects. So when people think what's going to give them the biggest commercial growth, it usually comes down to these 6 different channels or digital platforms. So what I'd like you to do is to just choose one of these. So no sitting on the fence, you've got to choose one which you believe this year will give your business or your clients the biggest commercial growth. So they're in alphabetical order, so no preference there. So starting with content marketing, show of hands please. Thank you for getting us started there. Okay, that's cool. And conversion rate optimization, CRO, improving the website, a few more there. Okay. Mobile marketing. Okay, we're seeing quite an even split, thank you. And then one of the traditional channels, search marketing. A lot fewer there, interesting. And finally, social media. Okay, so thank you, that's interesting. Of course, we've got to get all of these right. These are all going to fuel our success, and it's the way we integrate them with other channels as well, like email marketing, which I don't have room for. My view is that these channels don't exist in isolation, although you have individual people or agencies often managing them. So what you really need is a way of integrating them, getting them to work together. And for me, it's actually the top one, content marketing, which is key. It provides you with a way of integrating all of these digital channels, because content marketing fuels SEO, it fuels paid search, social media marketing. So this is really the view as I see it. If you're explaining your overall digital strategy, it's really all about the brand, and it's how the brand supports the content. And in the textbooks, I talk a lot about this OVP. We mentioned this in the first book. We called it the Internet Value Proposition. It's really, I think a lot of companies, when they first look at their online experience, their sites, they They think about who we are, what we do, what makes us different, all those good core brand messages that you should be clear. But what they sometimes miss is showing how the digital experience can add more. So it's like this added value, that's the OVP. And I'll show some examples of this in a moment. So as good marketers, we have to start with the customer. And one of the practical techniques I would suggest as a takeaway is to use customer personas. If you don't know this term, if you just Google, there's a bit.ly link at the bottom there, bit.ly smart OVP, will take you through the technique there. So I first heard about this persona technique in about 2003 when I was working with someone in HSBC, and they were looking at their globally business strategy, how they provided that tailor content. Back then, hardly anyone used it, but today it's a lot more common in the approach. Then we need to think through our content, how can we set specific goals for that? Because gone are the days where we measure page views and visits to the site. We really need to think about how much revenue every visit to the site is generating through analytics. On Smart Insights, for instance, we've got a measure in Google Analytics called revenue per visit, and I know that this month each visitor is worth about 11 pence because I've worked back across that, as other publishers would as well. So as I mentioned, content marketing, that should be at the heart, and thinking how that supports the brand for your different sorts of audiences. And then it's really communicating that across the channels. You'll have seen that a lot of consumer brands, that they will use TV advertising now to communicate what the web experience can offer. So a simple example would be Vanish Cleaner. If you look at their TV ads, it's all about what their Facebook and online presence can offer. So just bringing that all together and putting it at an individual level, it's about how you can help. It's how you can provide utility. And utility is the name of a book by a US commentator called Jay Baer. If you're interested in a book not so much on digital but on modern branding, I'd really recommend this, as he talks through lots of examples of how big US brands have applied this concept. So let's look at a couple of examples here. For Eloqua and HubSpot, B2B CRM companies, they've really driven a lot of their growth through content marketing. You can see at the bottom here, they've really created a content marketing machine, and that's what's fueled their success. So if you don't follow them, do check out their approaches, particularly if you're in business to business. This is our challenge, though. Have you seen this from Doug Kessler? Runs a B2B agency called Velocity Partners. I think we all know content marketing is important, but we use a Me Too approach, as it says here, just very short, non-engaging blog posts. I've seen a lot of quite big brands, they'll have downloads available, but they're just not sufficiently engaging or useful. So it's really finding this standout content to avoid. If you haven't seen this, it's on SlideShare from Doug Kessler. So that's really the challenge, and I think every organisation needs to do the research to find out what great means for them, or awesome, or epic, as the Americans say. So thinking of a strategy, you need some form of hub where you're regularly publishing the very best quality that you can in your sector, and you're almost winning your audience one at a time, and then groups as people share individually. So I'll show you a technique later, the content marketing matrix, which looks at how you can review the type of content you fuel at the top of the funnel there. So the hub, it could be a blog post if you're in business to business, but it could well be in a consumer brand, like for example Asda, it would be more a customer magazine, which was important to them offline, but they've now got the online equivalent of that. So if you get that hub right and you're regularly creating new content, and you know the basics of SEO, you can build a pretty big audience through this amplification, this sharing effect. So what we've done on Smart Insights for the last 2 or 3 years, we've created that, is that we now get about 250,000 visits a month, and it's all through following this regular process, just 2 to 3 blog posts a day. Something we're not so good at though, which I would say tends to be harder for a lot of brands, is what's in the bottom right, and that's working with other sites, other influencers, other partnerships. So finding complementary companies that you can work with is a key part of inbound or content marketing, which I think can be neglected. So in the remaining 20 minutes or so, I'm going to run through quickly the research in these 6 areas. Now, I asked you about the channels originally, but for me, what's going to help you succeed, what's going to fuel success, isn't whether you're particularly good at social media marketing against email marketing. It's having the right capabilities, the right resources in place across the 7 S's here. So it's really the people in your company, how they're structured, how you work with agencies and technology providers. Now, this may be a bit small if you're at the back there, but we asked, it's a 5-point scale. We said rate how good your capabilities are in digital, and you can see that there's relatively few, around a third have got this optimized approach at the top. So if you download the report, it's got more detail on what's involved in those. But there's quite a few businesses there in the middle, that's around 40%, who are quite inconsistent in their approach. So the question is, how can you move up the ladder, and what can you achieve if you do? So a great consumer example of this, if there's any students in the audience and you're looking for case studies, ASOS are really interesting as a really interesting brand, but they also put a lot of their performance approaches online in their company report as well. So they've really, I would describe them as an advanced, optimized organization, and you can see how they've really grown the international business there. You'll know them in the UK, of course, through applying these digital techniques to build their brand. One of the things they do is that they work very hard on CRO, which I saw quite a few of you put your hand up initially, and they're reviewing that for different segments in different relatively low conversion in the international against the UK, but they are working on that individually. And if you've been following ASOS for a while, you may know that they've actually changed the way they explain their proposition, what they offer for different audiences. So they've got these 2 clear primary customer journeys, very simple, and then they're explaining the proposition. This is Australia that they've optimized in this example. The second area that follows on from that we look at in the report is all around the management and the strategy, because everyone to some degree is using social media marketing, search marketing and so on. They've got a website, they've got a mobile optimized site. But what I find they often don't have is a structured plan to bring everything together. So when we did the research with TFM&A, we were keen to ask, do you have a marketing plan? There's a lot of pretty obvious reasons why you would want this, so that you've got your long-term vision, your goals, propositions, integration, all of these things, which are obvious. But when you look at how many people actually have a digital strategy, it's still relatively few. When we started asking this 2 or 3 years ago, it was actually the majority had no digital plan or strategy, but it's good to see now that the majority do have that, and I think digital can help with that planned approach. We did also ask, do you have a marketing strategy against which you can align your digital plans? And there was actually fewer businesses actually had a marketing plan, which was kind of worrying, I thought. But what we focus on in Smart Insights, and what I'm talking about in some of the more practical sessions at this event as well, is we provide a top-down framework to help companies build a strategy. And we do offer one of our pieces of content marketing. If you become a free basic member, you can. We've got a template you can use to build an outline of a digital strategy. So another example of a company that I think has really bought into digital and one who hasn't. So EasyJet, I featured them in my first book. I don't know if you remember their OVP. When they launched in '97, I think they offered a £2.50 reduced fare if you booked by online, and that's what got them the initial growth. And you can see they've really used it to fuel their international expansion since. If you compare that to another company, which I don't work with, but I think I can judge by this press release that they don't have a sound strategy. I don't know whether you saw this. This was last September, and Michael O'Leary was saying we're going to invest in digital. We're going to launch a Twitter channel. We're going to build some customer service, customer support, and they are now. I think they're investing this year 10 million in digital, just on the customer experience side. But a little too late, I think we could say, when you can compare that to the more structured approach and the more optimized approach that EasyJet are taking there. So what resources do you need? Well, we're great believers at Smart Insights. We really help both individuals learn to support them doing qualifications, and I think this is one way that you as managers in businesses can help compete with these big brands. So to invest in the training and qualification. So a lot of our members will be doing the CIM, the CAM diploma. They'll be maybe doing the IDM, Digital Diploma in Marketing, which I'm a tutor on, or maybe they're doing Google Squared. So I'd really urge you, if you're thinking, how can I improve my knowledge, to sign up to some of those structured approaches, or we've got shorter version of the qualifications as well. So I think this will be a challenge to look at. What we want to look at here is, given this big shift to emphasis on content, social media marketing to support search and awareness, how do people manage this? And there does seem to be a trend, whether it's email marketing, blogging, SEO, a lot of businesses are bringing these resources in-house because they're really core competencies now that you need to understand what works in your particular industry. So someone like Money Supermarket, for example, I noticed they were recruiting a new SEO manager, and they've got a massive team, well into double figures, just looking at SEO there. So that's the people resource. You've also got the technology resource, and it's pretty scary, this. I had to show this at a technology for marketing event. If you haven't seen this, it's a guy called Scott Brinkler, who's a commentator in the US on technology specifically for marketing. And although the details are a bit over the top and no one's ever going to read it, it does show you all the type of technology resources you can apply. And I'm a great believer that the companies that can harness all of these and select the right integrated approaches are the ones that succeed. So they're regularly reviewing. They're doing daily reviews, weekly reviews, and so on, using the insights that you can get and the automation that's possible as well. But what I would urge is, rather than thinking of technology, again, take it back to the customer and look at the experience. Now this term CXM, I don't know whether you've heard of it. This is from a Forrester report of a couple of years ago now, but I've been surprised that this, although we all talk about technology a lot, we don't talk so much about the overall experience and how we can deliver more personalized experiences through our web, mobile, and other communications. And I think this is really what will give you the most success if you can focus on this, measure what a good experience looks like in these areas, put in place the personalization, the analytics. So another way of looking at this, we talk about this in the book, is really showing the challenge of that. It's about making this work across different channels. Simple personalization techniques. Something we do on Smart Insights is we've just got, we run a WordPress site, and we've got a simple way of personalizing different content for logged in first-time visitors as well, and that really helps us boost our conversion rate. So, right message, right tone, right place. So tricky to achieve, and that's where you've got to use the marketing automation to put in place the rules to make that a reality. So the question that I would leave you with there is, if we're saying this customer experience management is important, first, who's responsible for that? And second, how are you measuring it? How are you improving? So another question for you here. Do you have someone or a group who manage this in your company or your client? Show of hands. Thank you. It's relatively rare, isn't it? So think about, in the US, for example, there's much more attention on techniques like Net Promoter Score, which really drill into customer loyalty and what drives customer loyalty. Now, some specific techniques you can use. I mentioned personas earlier. The reality is that anyone who buys or interacts with a brand online, it's multiple touch points across different channels. So this approach of touch point mapping or customer journey mapping, I think really helps to bring together the offline and online teams if they're still structured in this way. So here you can see this is for a fashion item, and then we've got the digital in-store at the top, out-of-store offline communications at the bottom, and we're just assessing the whole customer journey as someone engages with the brand there. So it's a useful technique to follow. So we've seen digital now for someone like EasyJet. It started off very gradually, 5%. Then I think Stelios Hagianou of EasyJet, he had this what we would call a BAG. Do you know this? BHAG? A big, hairy, audacious goal, an American thing. So he said, by the year 2000, I want to get 50% of our sales online. So he really put in place the resourcing and the change management to help him do that. And it's similar, say, today with mobile marketing. Many businesses are getting half of their leads or their sales online through mobile. So you need to make sure you're making that work across all the channels. And to get that that change doesn't happen overnight. It's a very long-term process. And I think one of our problems in marketing, as in many aspects of life, is that we're very short-term goal-oriented. Whereas what you need is a roadmap. It's going to take perhaps certainly a year, perhaps even 18 months, 2 years, to put in place a technology roadmap using all the wonderful technologies that are on display here. So one of the questions I was interested to ask was, how far ahead do you tend to look when you're trying to harness all these wonderful new digital approaches? And really, it was pretty poor. I think our natural instinct isn't to plan. It was good to see that a third of businesses there have an annual plan, but above the bar, we've got just less than probably the very largest companies with this longer-term roadmap. So something again to think about, have a roadmap or perhaps develop these quarterly plans to keep it focused. Of course, you need to be flexible because things change within the marketplace and the technology. So it's a combination of those short and long-term plans. Something we recommend on Smart Insights is 90-day planning. So as well as your annual plan, you break that down into 90 days where you're optimizing part of your customer experience or online communications to constantly drive performance. So it's really a cascading, a hierarchy of plans. So we asked, I've mentioned the importance of integration, and that's something that any business that's really more than one person working in marketing really has to work hard on. And you can see here that there's relatively few doing that optimization who are happy with the integration. So another area to think of. Now, a practical technique to bring together the different teams or different agencies working on your digital marketing and your offline communications is content. As I've said, content is at the heart of marketing today. And we've developed this content marketing matrix to help you review. You can run a workshop internally or brainstorm ideas for new types of content that competitors, maybe you can look at competitors, out-of-sector companies, what they're doing. Now, when I run this in workshops, what I find many companies do are at the bottom left, so they've got educational content, which will work probably with people who already know the brand, but it's not very good for spreading the message. And that more type of inspirational, entertaining content with videos, for example, on a site is the way forward. So this is one of our most popular infographics. Do take a look, because I think people find it a useful tool to apply. So the last couple of areas, investment. I've hopefully shown already that it's not about following what Jeff Bezos of Amazon calls the shiny objects. So last year we had people getting terribly, I thought, overexcited about Twitter, Vine, and the new Instagram videos, whereas really it's the more fundamental channels that will get you the business, the results. So we looked at where people were investing, and really it is still search, whether it's natural, AdWords, social media, and online PR. These are all areas that are growing because people realize that that's really the fundamental. Although social media still was the most popular one, I'm not sure that's always going to be the best approach. We did also ask, I think one of the big trends last year was that all of the social networks really upped their game for new advertising tools, whether it's Twitter, that's now open to smaller businesses for advertising. Facebook introduced their custom audiences. Google this year are going to introduce an advertising option for sharing related to Google+. So if you're not looking at those paid options or Google AdWords remarketing, you can see the grey bars are actually the biggest ones here. I think people have still got the perception that digital should be free and not a media investment. I think that shows the big grey bars there show a missed opportunity where people aren't investing here. So the last of this sequence of slides was looking more at earned media, really important part of content marketing. So you can see there a good level of investment in those too. So our last area, innovation and optimization. You see a lot of articles written about conversion rate optimization. We cover a lot of these, whether it's email or for landing pages on a website. But really what I think is key is how you explain your proposition. So it's the traditional segmentation, targeting, positioning, and then the personalized messaging and marketing automation to support that. So that's really where the optimization should focus. A big trend at the moment is with responsive design and these parallax designs. I don't know if you've seen the new Google Nexus site. Becoming more and more popular. I'm not actually convinced yet that these are more effective in terms of an experience and explaining the proposition than a multi-page site. I've worked with some businesses that have used these and they've actually been less successful, but it's certainly one area for optimization this year. EasyJet, they've put a lot of investment into both email personalization and web personalization through their content management system. And through a lot of the vendors here, you don't have to be EasyJet to use these sort of techniques. So think about which of these techniques you're optimizing. There's a good hardcore of about a third of businesses that are doing continuous optimization, whether that's web or email, but there's a majority that aren't doing these regular tests and improvements. The good thing about some of the tools is that they're free. We use Google Content Experiments on Smart Insights, and you can see there we're comparing two different forms. So we'll compare videos against the face picture, and we'll see which works best there. I've probably underemphasized email marketing because you can see from the number of CRM and email marketing vendors here today how important that still is. So how you actually map that out and optimize that is really important, I think. And often we're in this campaign mindset where we're running campaigns, but we haven't got these automated approaches of communicating. So this is actually for Halfords a couple of years ago. They reviewed their use of email across the customer life cycle from a new customer through to a more established customer, and really they had very few specific email communications. So they worked with eCircle, which are now Teradata, and you can see they mapped on where they could deliver relevant messages, integrate with social media. So a really good practical way of mapping how you can improve your email marketing. And they went through the whole program, how they could target and personalize in that way. And of course, we can't mention email without reminding ourselves that mobile email is the key area to get right for optimization, whether that's the iOS or the Android devices. So that's our 6 areas that we covered in the report. Briefly looking into the future, do any of you recognize this guy? You probably haven't met him. No one at all. Okay, this is one of the world's richest billionaires. It's Sergey Brin of Google with his Google glasses. So this is him on the New York Metro. So Google are definitely slated to launch this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that new opportunities that gives for marketing. This is a UK startup called Autographer I worked with, which is using a similar life logging technique where they're recording the whole experience of someone through the day, whether it's evening or day. So it's going to be interesting to see which new options this gives for personalization. There was even an app in the Google Glass store where you'd be able to photograph someone walking along the street and say, I need that dress or that handbag or suit or whatever. I think they removed that, which is probably a good thing. So exciting times ahead always, and I hope through what we offer on Smart Insights and in the book, we can help you develop as individuals as well. We can see there's such a vast range of areas to learn about now. Where do I focus? What's important? And I picked up on an interesting term from the States, T-shaped marketing. It's really saying you can't be an expert in everything, of course, so you need to decide your 2 or 3 areas of core focus which you stay on top of. And I think content marketing is an area you should really try and develop your expertise, and then maybe you'll look at search or the softer public relations approach and develop in those areas. So I'm just wrapping up now. I wish you all the best in the year ahead for developing that T-shaped profile, or maybe V-shaped as you process in different areas. If you do have any questions, I think that there isn't a talk immediately after, so do feel free to talk to me after the right now, but we also have a stand on H24, which is over in the far corner by the coffee bar on this side. And we always like to give new mind tools to help people learn. So we've called it an exclusive. We have developed it for the event. So if you're a basic member on Smart Insights, do come along to our stand. And this is our roadmap, our blueprint to help you think about your digital marketing. So I hope that's useful. I always like to connect and share ideas, so do connect with me on probably LinkedIn or Google+, are the best place for conversations. But I hope that summary of the research is useful. And as I said, the download's available on smartinsights.com/TFMA 2014. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Thank you.